Hey everyone, it's Scott from certmedia.com, and today I would like to take the opportunity to go over what's new in WordPress 5.3. WordPress 5.3 has brought a lot of really good improvements, particularly for those who use the block editor. Block editor, also known as Gutenberg, has been continuously updated, and if you ever want to get the latest updates of the block editor, all you have to do is install the Gutenberg plugin in the WordPress.org repository. But outside of the editor, there have been improvements. Some users may find a little bit odd, so let's go into them. The general breakdown is WordPress 5.3 should support PHP 7.4. There's, better support. There are improvements to the site health tool, and there's a brand new theme, 2020. But the biggest updates did go to the block editor, of which I'm going to start with. So first off, the block editor has received a lot of improvements in terms of performance. It shaved about a whole second off of its boot up time, and its key press events, which is how fast text would be inserted into the blocks when typing, is also much faster. So overall, they've done a really good job in terms of the actual flow of using the editor. Now, all the important stuff is what we're going to go into in the block editor, such as the new features. So as you could see, I have this block open and added. It is a column block. As you could see, you can add there's a plus sign in here that allows you to easily add a new block. This is known as the block appender. It's been added for both group and column blocks. This allows you to easily add new blocks within content forms like this, which should really improve your editing speed, especially if you're building more complex pages within Gutenberg. Now, you can now group blocks by group interaction, which means you're basically able to select multiple blocks and group them within a few clicks, as opposed to having to go through the old pain in the butt way. It's just a lot smoother. Now, the one that I was really excited and glad that it's finally in core is you're actually able to not only set the amount of columns, so if you add a new column, you can do it here, and it'll give you suggested layouts. You can actually modify the percentage width of those columns. I'm so glad that this is in here because it should have been in here a long time ago. The only thing that you can't apparently do, so let's say if you set this to 25 and this to 25 and then this to 25, what it's going to do is it's going to calculate the correct width to get 100% every time. This isn't a problem, but you can't right now choose easily how many columns you're going to want. So if you go here, let's say you want to do a 4-column layout, which is very common. You can't just check it from this window. What you could try to do is work with it to, let's see real quick. Set this to 25 and set this to 75. As you can see, it's just going to keep doing the same thing. So I really wish that we could easily add a new column. So if I want a 4-column layout, I should be able to do that. Being able to set the percentage widths of columns, big improvement, but I want to be able to have 4 columns right next to each other. Please. Okay. Now, the next interesting thing that's been added is known as the Blocks Pattern API. So essentially, what you'll be able to do is set options to pick from when adding a block. So the easiest thing, let me see if I can do this on this theme. Okay, so this is the custom color. So I've added a cover image and I can select the pattern, and I'm going to select this, and look at that. It took the cover block, and instead of putting in an image right away, it just chose a background color, and you can do all sorts of things here. Overall, I'm very pleased with this. Table block has also received some much needed quality of life changes. Table blocks were very rudimentary before. So table blocks now, you can obviously set, we're just going to do like a 5 by 5. So create this table, and I have 5 items. Cool. But now you can add stripes, which helps break it up. Or if you're trying to do a Excel spreadsheet type of look, this is added. You can also configure the default style, and then you can set the table settings. You can add a header section, which is going to strictly be used for declaring what each of these items are. They're not going to be what you use for the rest of it. And then you can do fixed width table, which will, as you could see, evenly space out the total width of each of the columns. So take this column and row. This text right here is just being pushed down. While previously, if this was disabled, it would just keep pushing over into the other side. This is much, much better. And then, as always, you could add a footer section if needed, but you probably won't be doing that. So overall, really amazing improvement. The block editor is getting a lot better. Now let's talk about the new block navigation. So the navigation module, or as we would call, sorry, not the block navigation module, the navigation mode. So in 6.3, there is a new navigation mode to navigate between blocks, which you can now do via the tab button. Previously, you weren't really able to tab around to blocks in easy fashion. It was, frankly, cumbersome. It was just easier to click around for everything. This should really help streamline your writing. So if as you can see, I've hit the tab button, and it's more or less going where I would expect it. So one thing that has been done as well is when you're working with multiple blocks, as you know, there are 2 ways that you can move a block. So if you have these paragraphs, and I'm just gonna, there you go. Previously, as always, you could push this button up, or you could push it down, or you could drag it. However, in this newest update, it's just added a nice transition effect, because what I found personally is when I was moving blocks around, it was very confusing when you click this button where the block would go. Sometimes if you're positioning items around very tall blocks, such as cover blocks, it's hard to, the item just effectively disappears and doesn't tell you where it goes or show you where it goes. This really helps it feel more natural, like I'm actually dragging it. If you're a fan of the gallery block, you'll now be able to reorder the image using arrows. So I'm just gonna briefly, do I even have images on here? Okay, I got 3 images. They're all the same, but I digress. Insert into the gallery. So now you can actually move the images in here by just tapping it left, right, and then I'll move it down. If you have 2 rows, so let's say you've got 2 columns, it will obviously allow you to move it all the way down, which is much needed improvement. Now, for those of you who have more newsy type sites and you try to incorporate your posts, the latest post block also has some improvements. So previously, it was really basic. I say the word previously all the time, but in the past, as you can see, it can now handle post content via excerpt and the post content iteration. So what it can do is it could show you the full post, or it could show you an excerpt. And depending on what it shows you, you can modify the number of words in excerpt or just show the whole thing. So if I change this to 5, I only want 5 words to show. Okay, the lowest you can go seems to be 10. I don't understand these arbitrary limits, but they're there. You can then obviously enable the post date, and then it'll do a nice read more. If you had more items, it would show you them listed out next to each other. So overall, it's quite impressive, because now that we can finally control the length of the excerpt, it allows you to use posts and other pages that you previously wouldn't be able to. Now, if you use the list block, list blocks have also seen some really interesting improvements. So you can now indent or outdent, which is the inverse. Shortcuts and what is it? The and reverse order. So if you just do this, and then we can indent this, now it's a child of this. And now let's say that I was over here, but I didn't need this to be a child anymore. I can push it back. You can't push it back anymore from there, but it's a really nice improvement. It allows you to make nested content a lot easier, and it works just as you would expect in any text editor. Wonder how many layers it'll let you get. Well, in theory, we would hit a limit, but for the sake of this, it doesn't look like it is. So that's really impressive. It allows you to get some really in-depth list. And then let me check my notes. Some other cool, interesting miscellaneous items. The column block now supports a vertical alignment. The separator block can now do a border color. Let me just get that for you. So if you go to separator, you can now choose the color. And you can also choose the type, obviously. So if you want it to be like this, and then boom, you got some dots or a wide line. Interestingly, when you use the wide line, it doesn't seem to take the color that I'm choosing. But what could you do? Cover block is resizable, which is great. The typewriter experience was improved for mobile devices. So if you're trying to use the block editor on mobile, it should be a lot less cumbersome. There's a new social links block. So let me see real quick. The social links box is in somewhere around here. Should be somewhere around here. However, it should be here, and it was added back in Gutenberg 6.5. Gallery block also supports captions, as I showed you earlier. Okay, so more or less everything is a lot more in depth. Okay. There's a bunch of developer changes regarding classes. So if you have a Gutenberg ready theme, you are going to need to check your CSS classes. I'm not going to go into all of them. It's relatively simple stuff, but you should make sure to check. Block API also received major updates. So the site health tool was introduced in WordPress 5.2, and a percentage grade was given on the tool kind of up here, and it was hanging at the top right, which is a little misleading, and the way that they handled it before wasn't very good. However, now it just says if the site should be improved or if it's perfect, and they cut out the percentage. The reason this was done is because it concerns users who would click it, and when you grade it, grading something that's as ambiguous as the site health tool can be confusing, and it also does alarm users because users will always aim for 100% regardless if it's better for their website. For instance, if you were using a WordPress cron and you had a schedule event fail, it would cause issues. For instance, if you had Imagic, which is a image software library, and instead use GD, what will happen is your score will be much lower, even though it's not necessary for WordPress to function. So by removing the grading system, it reduces the ambiguity of it, and it also allows users to get a more streamlined and easier to understand. The only two things that you'll have is should be improved or good. It doesn't tell you whether the site is healthy or not. It just will tell you if it should be improved or if there's recommendations. The only good thing now is also you have the recommended and the critical issues. Additionally, when a failure occurs in WordPress, it will now send users a recovery email to the admin email. However, what WordPress realized when this feature came out was most people who set up their website under settings general they just have a random email address in here. Oftentimes, this was just simply not, frankly, useful. Nobody would update this. It would be out of date. And now they're sending people a notification to make sure, is this still right? And it will check every 6 months and say, hey, this should be checked. And then there's also filters for completed site health status tests. So there is a new filter, site_status_test_result, that will allow you as a developer to filter the output of a finished status test to extend the result of said test. So if there's a PHP extension missing, you would be able to add a link to the PHP extension manager of the cPanel or whatever you're using, and then users could enable it or disable it. Now, let's touch on something else that's been going on. We talked about the admin email verification, but something else that happened in the admin panel is color contrast. And frankly, I don't like it. It's kind of obnoxious. So WordPress 5.3 added color contrast for your admin panel. If you haven't noticed it yet, it's pretty obvious everywhere, but the biggest places are on this post page. Everything has some sort of extra border around it. As you can see, the filter button, which was previously like a dark gray, which I would just say like a light gray with black text on it, is now a really light gray with blue text on it and a blue border. This was meant to address accessibility issues, but I'm not going to lie, I'm not really a fan of it. It looks very blocky. And you notice this on other pages too, particularly on here. The first thing that I drew my eyes on was the extra border that was added here, along here, and it just kind of hits you and sticks out like a sore thumb. So maybe I'll get used to it, but either way, I'm not a fan of it. Resuming uploads has been added. So uploading a large image on a phone won't cause the uploader to fail. WordPress will now support resuming uploads when they fail on your mobile device. And then images that are uploaded will be correctly rotated based on the EXIF data that's given for the image. That way, when an image is uploaded, previously sometimes if you upload an image and the data was either missing or WordPress didn't read it, it would really stick the image in the wrong orientation, which would cause it to look really odd. And everything else is very developer oriented. You've had the date and time core component, which was added, which just fixed a lot of time issues in WordPress. It was interesting. The ARIA current attribute was added. You can now set a new ARIA current equal page, which is going to be automatically programmatically added, blah, blah, blah. ARIA, mostly it's almost all accessibility issues. Now, WordPress did add functions for the new rel attributes that Google will be supporting. There's rel sponsored and rel UGC, which is user generated content, which would be comments and forum posts. WordPress has added support for UGC for the comments. And then REST API saw some pluses, but other than that, almost everything that matters for you, the end user, is going to be this admin panel reskin and the block editor improvements. Overall, I'm really pleased with the update. I want to see where the block editor is going to keep going. I really would like to see... I would frankly just like to see some more flexibility on the columns block. I do feel that the column block could use some improvement. And then we have all these embeds. More or less, it's just keep adding more blocks and then improving the existing blocks for more complex page layouts. From a strictly editorial point of view, adding content and adding images is so easy now. It's so much better than it used to be. This is much snappier than the last iteration of the editor. I just wish that the column block had a little bit more flexibility. At least allow me to add 4 columns. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me in the comments section below. Otherwise, you can go ahead and ask your questions on the WordPress.org forums, and someone will be able to help you. Thank you.